Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. I'm the Canadian, back with another N-Scale video. Kind of a review, but mainly of a video. Which, forget that. Wow, that sound, wow, okay. Yes, because, what, yeah, I need scripts. So today, we're going to be on the experimental layout, but we're going to be sitting at the ferry terminal. And no, we're not doing a ferry-related video yet. But I'm basically going to be explaining something that I very much appreciate that some railway companies do. Some of them don't do much of it anymore, but some of them still do, and I definitely take advantage of this. So, I have everything set up in the holding lanes. By the way, speaking of ferries, if any of you know anything about ferries, especially if you live in British Columbia, as I do, drop down in the comments what you think the name of this particular ferry is. It's not a complete accurate representation. The front is straight instead of bowed upwards. At the time that I built that, I didn't learn that skill yet. But if you think you know the name, drop it down in the comments below. And I might give you a shout out if you get the answer right. But not really talking about that. What I'm talking about is this grouping here. Oh, I do have everyone in the frame. Now, what's so special about the items that I have selected here? Well, all these started out as undecorated, which means there's no paint and no markings or railway markings whatsoever. They're just the straight plastic. And that is something that I absolutely adore when it comes to model railroading, especially if you do freelance railroads or it's something that no one has done, where a lot of short line stuff or the main line stuff where you just want a particular car or locomotive. And I love this, especially because I do a freelance railway, so I have to take advantage of these. And sure, you can get a decorated unit, like where's one here? Oh, yeah. This is a decorated unit. Take this MP15 DC or AC, one of the two. It was originally Southern Pacific. I stripped the paint and I painted it in my freelance line colors, and I bought. It's another thing too, is you sometimes you can actually get parts for locomotives, and that's what I did, as I got parts and I built it my own. But as much as I like doing my own, I'm not really a fan of stripping paint. Not only can it be time consuming sometimes, especially if you're Kato, where they can be really stubborn, but you know, I'm not really a fan of it, especially with, you know, if it's a particular unit that you find and that you want, it's hard to find. The only one you can find is a really nice deco from another railway, so you kind of have to get it because you're probably never going to see it again. You don't, and it's nice. I don't really want to take out that deco. As a last resort, sure, but other than that, no, I like to stick with undecorateds. And that's what all these have in common. They all started out as undecorated. Now, depending on what road you get, you're going to get varying levels of detail. For example, I'm going to start with these 3 boxcars. Now, these 3 boxcars, I have found quite a few of them at my old hobby store, and I regret not buying them all because they are in the second-hand clearance bin for like $8 Canadian a piece. I bought 3. They had 9. I should have bought all 9. Because worth it. These box cars are, some of them, I don't know which ones. I haven't learned that skill yet of identifying which ones are which. But all of them are very nicely detailed. They all have these bare metal floors, which I should have painted black, but you're not going to be looking at the bottom. And being roundhouse, they have two options for couplers. Either they're going to have the box style Rapido types, or these, focus, dummy knuckle couplers, which are good for beginners, but eventually I get them all swapped out to microtrains. Truck mounted couplers. Now, I have 3 of these examples. All 3 I have already painted. Unfortunately, when I get an undecorated item, it doesn't stay undecorated for long. This one, I haven't decided yet. It's probably just going to be a generic one. I've noticed that it does have that square panel, which I believe Seco had. It's probably not going to be a Seco. This one, I'm pretty sure you can tell what it's going to be judging by a paint scheme. And then this one's a double door example. This is going to be for my freelance railroad. Which, by the way, you subscribe to this channel, eventually I'll be going over a video of my freelance railroad and how it's semi-prototypical, and the history behind it, and the history behind its prototype. So anyway, yeah, these are my examples from Roundhouse. Very nice, very simple, just floor, truck, shell, slap together, paint it. And the plastic, I found I didn't have to, I primed them, I didn't really have to. This one I didn't prime, and it held the paint quite nicely. The future Sioux line, that white is a primer with a tester's red. And then this one is painted with a primer. Now, going on to the next tribute, microtrains. Microtrains, I have found a lot of undecorated items. Unfortunately, not in the era I've done, but when I do find them, I snatch them up as quickly as possible. One thing with microtrains is they always have the microtrains compatible trucks because they're microtrains. I did find one that was sealed. I think it was old as old can be. That did not have microtrains couplers. I did not question it because I put microtrains couplers on it. It's, yeah. This is an ACF 3-bay grain hopper painted in my freelance railroad. And it had all the fixings on it. And it was a straight white plastic, and I've already installed metal wheels on it, but I had everything on it ready to go. And one thing I appreciated too was these, as the hatches are separate, I managed to take it off and paint them silver. Very nice. You're going to see some crease lines here. One thing I found with this is if you find an undecorated microtrains car, prime it. I did not put a primer on, and I regret it. Another thing too is when you're masking, if you're doing a multiple paint scheme, like multiple color scheme, make sure you mask well. Because as you can see, if you can see that in there through the massive blur, yeah. This side turned out pretty good. You can see a little bit of crinkling in the bottom there. That is from paint lifting. And I do have paint lifting right here as well. That's what happens when you don't prime a lot of these. And then, yes, I did have to do a bit of sanding because, again, paint did some weird stuff and I had to sand it off. And I tried to polish it up. Didn't go well. I tried to cover it with paint and now it's just blatantly obvious, so. I'll just say that they painted over rust without doing proper treatment. Next up is an Atlas. I do not remember which one? Oh, one other thing too. A lot of the microtrains undecorated I found come in one of those clamshell type packaging where it's like, you know, like a Hot Wheels car. Ow! I moved. Do I have an example? I have an example. Popping into my little bit of a Hot Wheels collection here. Packaging like this. You have the cardboard with the plastic glued on top. Sure, until you need to put it away and you realize that you don't have an abundance of these. Yeah. Ooh, I had a hiccup. Yeah, storage can be a pain when it comes to some undecorated units. Though mind you, a lot of them nowadays do have jewel cases. Next up is the aforementioned offering from Atlas. This caboose, I forget what it was, the specific specs that they gave it, was undecorated, and it had all the parts on it. So the brake wheel, which I haven't put on yet, it's still in the box. The walkways, exhaust stack for if you have a stove in there. The ladder, grab iron there. The other one, which is still in the box. All came with it, as well as all the detail underneath as well. And the weight's loose again. The weight was a separate piece as well that I put in. Very nice. Primed it as well and painted it in my freelance colors. Currently using it on this layout as a shoving platform, which I am currently investing in right now, is a separate platform. But again, you know, undecorated, no stripping, don't have to worry about getting rid of a nice paint scheme underneath, and just make it your own. And again, as I mentioned a little bit previous in the video, it's not just related to cars. You can find undecorated locomotives as well. And if you're doing a specific locomotive, finding an undecorated one is like finding the Holy Grail. Sometimes you're just getting a basic, for example, this unit here in my fictional Amtrak North that does Seattle to Alaska, or Washington to Alaska. I don't know where it's going to go in Alaska, but it's going to go up there. It's just a -9, undecorated, which is nice because I was keeping the standard unpainted gray on the bottom. Didn't have to worry about taking off any paint, and then just paint it up. Now I don't have to worry about getting specific parts or anything. Now when it comes to specific parts, you're going to find companies that make those specific parts. For example, my CN-9, number 2513. This was an undecorated -9. Please excuse my arm. This was undecorated, but it had the blackness on it of the trucks. And hold on, I have a light here that I'm moving around to get proper lighting. It's not working. Improvisation. Don't you just love it? Anyway, so yeah, it already had like the black fuel tanks and the trucks on it, so I didn't have to worry about that. Now, one thing I did have to worry about was getting the cab. As some of you know, especially those in Canada who are familiar with the CN original batch of -9s that had the original Canadian safety cab, in N-Scale, no one makes that locomotive. And HO Scale, Overland made it, but some of us don't have like $4,000 in the bank account for that. And most of us that do, we would rather save that money than have significant other just destroy us. Yeah, not a wife approved pricing. It's brass, I get it, but and then most recently, HO Scale Athearn Genesis recently released these. But in N scale, no one makes these. Athearn. Yeah? Or even a company like Rapido. You like sometimes doing Canadian stuff. Eh? Anyway, so yeah, this cab, again, is a resin cast from Caslo Shops. And they did a wonderful resin casting of this. I have not put the details on yet. And a little bit of a color difference there in the cyan orange because one is primed, the other is not, and they were different colors. And then, yeah, the decals. I don't have the information decals yet. You know, micro scale. But yeah, again, undecorated locomotive. Did what I want. Went through a third-party company and got the part that I needed. Or parts, because there's multiple parts. Now sometimes, again, you want custom locomotive, one that no one's made yet. Again, by the way, these 3 locomotives are all Kato. Behold this AC 4400, an undecorated unit, I did up with a Canadian Pacific holiday train. This train will come out for a future Christmas special and a few videos before. Undecorated, primed it, put on a glossy red to keep it clean, and the decals were from Circus City Decal. Circus City? Yeah, Circus City. And then the tree, I just got like a dollar store fir tree, clipped the top off and glued it on. Came with, is it here? Came in, of course, the typical Kato jewel case. I had to modify it a bit to fit the tree. Now all of these came DC. Sometimes you might be able to find an undecorated unit for DCC, not that common. But this is the only one of these that I have a DCC decoder in. That's a TCS N14K1. Or, no, NCE N14K1. But yeah, and then just painted it up. And I noticed something too. These decals are kind of reflective too, so that's quite nice. But yeah, as you can see, you know, with undecorated cars and locomotives, you know, you can let your imagination go wild. You got a freelance railroad, you can do whatever you want. You know, you don't have to stick to a prototype. As you can see. Like, and also if you want specific locomotives, you don't have to worry about stripping paint, damaging the plastic, because I know sometimes some people use a stripper, leave it on a little bit too long, and it melts or distorts the plastic. My go-to is anywhere between 70 and 90% isopropyl alcohol. Works like a charm. Katos are a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, if you're into doing your own stuff, definitely get an undecorated car. Sometimes you're not going to find... Oops, I'm making a mess. Sometimes you won't find an undecorated car, and you have to peel some paint. Not all of us like that. So, with that, that'll mark the end of this video. If you like this video, click on that like button. And as always, if you want to see more, subscribe. Especially if you want to see some Christmas videos with this. And as always, let me know what you think down below in the comments. Do you prefer getting undecorated units or stripping paint off of decorated units? And also tell me your opinions and suggestions, and maybe some recommendations. But until then, I'll see you in the next video.